Hello, I'm Adam Alasdair, and this is another installment of a series of videos I'm doing about weaponry and warfare in the zombie apocalypse. So I've covered swords and a few other things to this point. I'd like to talk today about something that usually gets skipped, whether this is fictional zombie apocalypse worlds like that of The Walking Dead, or survival guides like the Zombie Survival Guide that Max Brooks wrote. There usually isn't very much of a useful discussion, I think, of body armor in these. The Zombie Survival Guide, I believe, basically lists a few different types of armors that you could wear, and basically says most of it's too heavy and impractical. And this is because the Zombie Survival Guide is fixated upon metal armor, and so it's missing an entire mass of different types of technologies that humans have used over the centuries to protect themselves. You know, for the most part, many soldiers, are going to be using relatively little metal armor because it's expensive. It's the realm of the nobleman to be able to wear heavy metal armor and stuff like this, and it gets it's probably especially even more compartmentalized towards that when you're talking about articulated plate armor, like the 15th century, late medieval Europe. The knight in armor, if you mean a suit of plate armor, it's so expensive that very few people could actually wear it. There was a sort of renaissance of lots of lighter types of armor at the same time that you have the pinnacle of European plate armor, and that's because of the cost of the thing. And so we have to talk about armor as far as zombies are concerned, and so we're really not going to focus too much on metal armor because you don't need it against them. Zombies don't come in a sword-wielding or spear-wielding variety. They just have teeth, and so you just need to be able to stop them from chewing you. This isn't the same thing as trying to stop someone who has a poleaxe and they want to crush your head with it. So we can ignore metal armor for the most part, because there are a lot of other things that you could use. One of them is something like this. This is a leather bracer. You can make these, you can buy them. It's sort of nerdy, I suppose, but then again, I'm talking about zombies on a video. So this type of thing is going to protect you from the bite of a zombie. They won't be able to bite through this. And especially what this is meant to protect, I think, is probably more important almost than what it is and what it's made out of. It's meant to protect the forearm. If you think about zombies, especially considering that they have a very one-track mind. They don't do anything except go directly at you and try to bite you. A zombie that's going to be in the process of trying to bite isn't going to feint and do a sneak attack to your leg. They're going to bite the closest thing that they can get. And so on a standing human, if you're facing a standing zombie, the zombie's going to threaten your face, your neck, your shoulders, and your forearms. And your forearms mostly because someone having a threat presented to their face, if someone's trying to cut you or hit you or something, usually you throw your hands up to protect yourself, and so you get defensive wounds on your forearms. And against zombies, you're going to try to push back at them, and it's going to be relatively common, I think, that people would be bitten on the forearms. So you should probably protect that. This actually gives you a shield against zombies in a certain way. They don't have weapons. You need something to block a zombie, then you need something that they can't bite through. And actually, we're helped in this by the fact that the human jaws, it's not bad, I suppose, at biting, but it's nothing like a Rottweiler or anything larger than that. The bite force of a reasonably sized dog is something like 200 foot-pounds stronger than what we can do. And our teeth are relatively blunt, not designed for shearing off big chunks of meat or something like this. Most human bites, if you look at them, normal humans biting each other, what you get is a sort of semicircular pattern of shallow piercing wounds, right? So we just need to find something that a zombie can't bite through. So we have a leather, of course, that's going to work. You can get lots of things without even having to make anything. A heavy leather jacket, if you're in the type of climate where you can stand to wear that thing. Probably they're not going to be able to bite through it. There are various types of sports equipment that would serve to help guard you. And you can also make your own stuff. I like the concept of making equipment because it gets past the argument that, well, you wouldn't be able to find something. As far as armor is concerned, you should be able to make something no matter where you are out of the stuff that you have at hand. It's actually easier than you would think. If you want a leather protection for your forearm, you can make something like this. This is a van brace constructed out of an old cowboy boot. These things are cheap and ubiquitous at thrift stores. Probably no one's going to be looting the used cowboy boot section at the thrift store, so you'll have this. And any sort of leather this thick or heavier will probably work for you. You could get a big leather glove. The only problem with those is the gloves that are large enough, in my experience, something like a welding glove, is going to be so thick that it negatively impacts your manual dexterity, and you want to be able to use your hands. And so wearing a lighter glove with something like this should be actually fairly effective. And you can cut this so that the heel of the boot is here. It gives a hard reinforced part right out this side of your wrist. So this is extremely simple to make. I made this with a sharp knife as fast as I could without endangering my fingers. So anyone can do something like this. If you want to get more into the arts and crafts, you can do something like this, which is a type of armor that ancient Greeks invented and used at the time of the Persian Wars and the Peloponnesian War. And this is simply a bracer made out of the material that Greeks used to make something they called a linothorax. That's basically literally cloth chest. This was a breastplate that covered the upper body with this material, and all this is layers of cloth glued together. The original linothorax that the Greeks would have used was made out of linen, layers of linen, and then glued together with some sort of hide-based glue. This is actually worn-out T-shirts and rags and wood glue, which is actually harder than the originals would have been. This particular item, if you can hear, is essentially a solid plate. I think I made it thicker than it needed to be. There's absolutely no way that a zombie is going to be able to bite through this material. This is essentially sort of like ancient Kevlar. It will stop arrows, cutting attacks. There's just no way that a zombie's mouth is going to be able to bite through this material. And you can make this very easily with whatever you have lying around. It's sort of a form-your-own plate armor. And it actually, despite the fact that it is really hard, this will form to your body after body heat softens the glue a little bit, so it's not as uncomfortable as it might seem. It doesn't breathe very well, so it is hot, but there's that. The sky is the limit, basically, as far as your ingenuity is concerned. And I stress that in the book that I wrote, Weapons and Warfare in the Zombie Apocalypse, is that the greatest tool that you have is your mind. It's not any one weapon or item or anything like that. It's the ability to adapt to changing situations and circumstances. And so the person that thinks on their feet, the person that makes the most use of the things that they have around them, these people are going to be the ones that survive the longest. And so there's no excuse for not having the right tools, because you can find or make anything you might need for the most part. And so if you are going to fight zombies, despite the fact that this is slightly dorky, there's no style points really in the apocalypse. The main thing is that you don't turn into a zombie after being partially devoured. So protect yourself. You should be wearing body armor. Thank you.